in terms of the full structure, it looks like the Jazz are moving Mike Conley to the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And then Minnesota is also getting 2 second-round picks. Minnesota is moving D'Angelo Russell to the Lakers. The Lakers are also acquiring from the Jazz Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. The Lakers are sending a first-round pick to Utah in order to facilitate the movement of Russell Westbrook's contract to Utah, as well as acquire all of these players. So this is a thing that on this podcast, in episodes with Jason Timpf, in episodes with Mark Schindler, I've been calling for a long time. I've been calling for the fact that I think the Lakers are closer than everyone seems to think in terms of contending in a real way for the playoffs. I think this deal certainly gets them closer. I don't know if I buy it as like the thing that pushes them over the top. I certainly think, though, that it is a good deal for the Los Angeles Lakers. Where do you fall on this from the Lakers' perspective, Cole? Because I think that is ultimately the thing that's going to get the most kind of runway here, given how weird and bizarre this Lakers situation has been all year.
Yeah, it's a good trade for them. They accomplished a bunch of things. They got off of Russ's contract, which, they made public that they've been trying to do for a long time now. They finally did it, even though he's in his last year. They didn't have to give up both of their picks that they were reluctant to do. They held on to one of them. And they got back good players. Like, none of them are all-star caliber players at this point, but solid role players. They got some more shooting with Malik Beasley. Mike Conley, an extremely good veteran point guard, not what he once was back in his Memphis days, but
and he's obviously going to Minnesota, but they're going to get D'Angelo Russell.
D'Angelo Russell, I'm sorry. Laker fans know a lot about D'Angelo Russell. I think he's having his best season in quite some time. He's shooting the ball really well. He's efficient. Seemed like he was playing really well. It's interesting. I don't think Minnesota just wanted to pay him. That must have been it when he hits free agency. And then Jared Vanderbilt, the Lakers defense has been really bad. Vando isn't going to do much on offense. He started to expand his range a little bit. He's not a shooter or anything like that, but he's not out there for that. He's going to provide defense. He's going to be really good for them when AD plays the 5. He'll step in at the 4. I don't know if he'll start or whatnot, but just a good defender. Can guard some guards, can certainly guard wings. Depending on the big, can guard those two, has good foot movement. Like, I think it's a good haul for the Lakers, all things considered, just to still, only have to give up one pick and get rid of Westbrook. I thought they did really well.
I think the thing that stands out most to me is that the Lakers actually picked up size with skill and not necessarily athleticism, but they're going to be bigger now. This is a team throughout the season that has just really, really struggled with the small lineups that they have to play. Like, there are times where they play guys that are 6'1" to 6'3", and they have like 3 of them out there at once. Like, they'll play Dennis Schroeder, Russell Westbrook, Patrick Beverley at once. And it's just really hard to cover the court when you do that. That's why this team gives up open threes, night after night after night. It's just hard to cover the court when you're that small. They get a guy that's 6'5" in D'Angelo Russell, another guy that's 6'5", 6'6" in Malik Beasley. And then they get an enormous guy who's a great defender in Jared Vanderbilt, who is 6'9". The guy that I'm going to start with, I think, is Vanderbilt, because I think he actually kind of solves he doesn't solve all of the problems, but he solves interesting problems for them. This is a team that, despite having LeBron James and Anthony Davis, has not rebounded well this season. They are, I believe, 16th, 17th, 18th, something like that in defensive rebounding rate. And then they just aren't really even contesting the offensive glass at all. Jared Vanderbilt's really going to help in terms of crashing the glass. That's what he does. He's a super high effort player. The other thing that Jared Vanderbilt does is he gives them another option is kind of a defensive, like, chess piece even. He can do a lot of different stuff. Like, he can go out and guard almost, not necessarily at the point of attack, but he can guard twos from time to time. He can certainly guard big up the lineup. He's best as like kind of roaming defender that kind of flies around. Like you look at what Minnesota had success with last season defensively, it was essentially hiding D'Angelo Russell away from any sort of screening action, and then having Jared Vanderbilt guard like 2s and 3s, and then having Jaden McDaniels guard 1s and 2s basically from time to time. So I think that Vanderbilt as a defensive chess piece is very, very helpful. We'll talk about Utah's side of this in a minute. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't get a little bit more, and I wonder if they broke these pieces up, if they could have gotten a little bit more. The Beasley addition is the easiest one to fit. They just needed someone that's 6'5" and could shoot threes, right? They just need someone that can come in and do that. Russell is the weird one for me here because Russell is not very good defensively. And I think he's going to exacerbate problems for them a little bit defensively. You can play him with Patrick Beverley and let Patrick Beverley deal with the point of attack. And you can try and slide D'Angelo off the ball, but D'Angelo doesn't even deal well with like secondary creators anymore because he just really struggles to get through any sort of screening action at this point in his career. Minnesota's defense, if you take Rudy Gobert off the court and leave D'Angelo Russell on it, they have like a 120 defensive rating this year. Like it's been a total mess. So it's going to be interesting for me to see how D'Angelo fits. He gives them another ball handler, and he gives them another ball handler with size, which is something they really needed. I really wonder if they would have been better off just taking Mike Conley in this move and just like doing a deal directly with the Jazz. I know that Conley would have added another small guard, but I would have been comfortable at that point, just like moving Patrick Beverley, Dennis Schroeder, etc., to a different location, basically. Having said that, D'Angelo Russell's big. He's a great shooter. He will help this Lakers team undeniably.
And it's interesting because he played with a lot of these players last year. And I know Minnesota, they were kind of up and down defensively last year. Sometimes they had stretches where they were really good. Sometimes they weren't so good. And I think they kind of broke out maybe around top 10 defense, 11 or 12, something like that. But it's just going to be interesting because he started with Patrick Beverley last year. I don't know if that's going to be a thing or if Schroeder is going to be out there. But, playing with Vanderbilt in the starting lineup last year, like he's played with these guys before, and then you can make the LeBron Ant comps and the AD Cat comps, and we know which two are better and whatnot. But it seems like it's going to be a similar style for him. I don't know if Ham's defensive rotations and his schemes and stuff are necessarily going to line up with Minnesota / with Chris Finch. That's the thing. But it'll be interesting to see just how he plays with those guys that he had decent success with last year, even though they kind of hit him, like you said.
I'm glad you brought up the Darvin Ham piece of this. I don't want to go too hard on a first-year coach. I've been pretty worried. Like they have dudes that are bigger. Like you can, I know Austin Reeves has missed some time recently, but like you can throw Austin Reeves and you can throw Max Christie and you can throw Lonnie Walker in a little bit more. And like they had the option to go bigger and they didn't. I have not been really impressed with like Darvin Ham's rotational decision-making. Let's go with this season. I don't think he's done a very good job. This gives him more options. That can go one of two ways. It can go toward immense frustration for Lakers fans, or it can go toward them really figuring some things out. Maybe that fit with D'Angelo Russell and Patrick Beverley will really help in a substantial way. But the thing that I think the Lakers are going to struggle with a little bit more often is where the Wolves were really good last year defensively is they put D'Angelo Russell into like this weak side, like almost like defensive captain role, he's not Draymond Green, of course, but like that was kind of what they did with him. They had him like roam the back line and call out defensive coverages. And he was really, really good at communicating all of that stuff last year. They can't really do that because that's what LeBron does. And
now he's got to be on the ball more.
He's going to have to be on the ball a little bit more. Like they'll have Beverly annoy at the point of attack. Like they won't have to deal with him, against lead initiators, I don't think most of the time, unless Darvin Ham is really not as good as I think he might not be good. But like, they should be able to avoid the worst matchups for D'Angelo, but it might be hard to avoid bad matchups for him with these lineups because you have Anthony Davis as the central piece. You have LeBron being the guy who's probably going to call out backline coverages. You're probably going to have to put Russell on the 1, 2, or 3 defensively. And that's just not a role that he's going to be successful in at this point in his career. I don't think he's 26 years old. I know he's not like out of his prime or anything. I know he's been in the league 8 years. He's a veteran, but he just doesn't move well anymore. The knee stuff, it feels like that he's dealt with throughout his career. It has sapped a lot of what his lateral quickness is. And he takes really bad angles and screens. So that's actually the point where I'm a little bit worried about this for the Lakers. Why I think they did this, my guess, this does not come from reporting. Russell's contract expires. Malik Beasley's contract has a team option for next year. So they can essentially get rid of $46 million off of their cap sheet in the same way that they were going to be able to get rid of $48 million off of their cap sheet by moving on from Russell Westbrook. They have to pay a first-round pick to do it, but they pay a first-round pick in order to compete this year. I think it's a really, really smart move for the Lakers to be able to do this. They're flexible to be able to move on in the summer if they have to. They have that Rui Hachimura cap hit that apparently they seem interested in re-upping for next year. I'm skeptical of that, but we'll see. They have Beasley, who is on a team option. They'll have flexibility to keep him or let him go. And then they'll have D'Angelo Russell's, cap hold and his bird rights. So they'll be able to play with that a little bit. Yeah. They have options now in a way that they didn't in the offseason, which overall I think is better for them moving forward. They have more flexibility in the way that they can do things, both now where they should be able to be a better basketball team with better basketball players around LeBron and Anthony Davis, as well as having real flexibility moving forward. The Minnesota Timberwolves part of this is interesting. They acquire Mike Conley for D'Angelo Russell, basically. And I really like this move. What do you think of it, Cole?
I think it helps them. Even though D'Lo was playing really well, especially as of late, I think, like I said, Conley's not what he once was, but you factor in, Gobert gets another player that he played with and had success with in Utah. Maybe that helps him out as a pick and roller and unlocks a little bit more of his rolling ability as in the half court and make him a little bit more useful. But those two have good chemistry. Obviously, I think, Conley being the veteran point guard that he is, he's going to make sure Ant gets the ball in ideal situations, ideal times of the game when Minnesota's offense needs to get into stuff instead of hunting for a shot. I just think he's a good fit with them. He's going to bring a maturity to that locker room as well for a team that, is trying to grow up fast, given, their best players and they had a taste of the playoff last year. Obviously, they went all in with Rudy. So I just think just give me another veteran presence that's going to do well in the locker room, be a coach on court, and just try to help them take a more mature approach to the season. And maybe that'll provide them a little bit more consistency because we've seen flashes during the season where they've been really good and then they'll lose to like Houston or Orlando or something like that, and they'll just kind of drop off. So I think it's a good move for them. I think they got, like you said, 2 or 3 second-round picks as well. I don't know how much that's going to help considering all the first rounders they gave up for Rudy, but not a bad trade, all things considered. You just giving up D'Lo.
I think that's right. I like the Conley fit better on both ends. So part of this is that Mike Conley has taken a step back within Utah's offense this year. He's been much more of a distributor, playmaker, passer out of ball screens, just a floor general, and like as an overall player, right? He's taking 8.7 shots per game. That's the lowest number he's taken since his rookie season. Here's the thing. He's still really good. He's actually creating almost 16 points per game out of ball screens as either a scorer or a passer. That's like top 20 in the NBA. I think it's 17th. Of the 16 guys that are ahead of him, 15 of the 16 have been all-stars either this year or last year. And then the 16th guy is Jalen Brunson, who might get named as an injury replacement this year. So Mike Conley is still a real offensive driver. Don't let those like 10.7 points per game fool you. He has a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, averaging 7.7 assists per game. Conley has been really, really good this year as an offensive player. On top of it, you don't have to worry about him taking like isolation possessions. You don't have to worry about him overstepping his bounds. That's going to be really, really important for them, given that Anthony Edwards has taken this, like, I genuinely think like he's taking his superstar leap kind of in front of our eyes, right now, basically. On top of that, they're going to get Karl Towns back. And that's going to be more like possessions where they need to get that guy a shot, right? They need to get Karl Towns a shot because Karl is great and deserves offensive reps every single night. So I think that going from a guy in D'Angelo Russell, it's like a 22 to 25 usage rate guy, reducing that down to Mike Conley, who's going to be happy being like a 16 to 18 usage rate guy. It's huge. It's really, really helpful for the Timberwolves. And that's before we go to the defensive side. Mike Conley has real synergy with Rudy Gobert, having played with him in Utah. He knows what Rudy needs in terms of drop coverage from his guards. Mike Conley's really, really good at fighting through screens, getting over the top of them if that's what the situation calls for, navigating them, navigating like double screens at the top, navigating drags, like everything that you can do. Mike Conley's really, really good at it in terms of screens and getting through it. That's going to help Rudy.
100%. I've been watching a bunch of synergy clips of Mike Conley the last few days, and that's the one thing defensively that stood out to me was just how well he maneuvers those ball screens. Like, he doesn't get hit on them hardly ever. And, just to take it back again, I know Patrick Beverley is sort of in a similar way. Like, those guys fight through screens, and even if they don't, get back in front of their guy, they're able to get contests and not force overhelp from other players and force Rudy to have to do too much or force the wing guy to dip too far into the help lane and whatnot. So all that stuff adds up. And like you said, his chemistry with Rudy, he knows what he has back there, and he knows how to funnel stuff to him in case of emergency and whatnot. So I think it's a good move. He's not a lockdown defender or anything like that, but he's very, very smart, high IQ. And then obviously, still brings offensively the IQ as well. And we talked about how he maneuvers off the pick and roll, especially when guys aren't at the level of screen. He's so quick with his trigger. Lots of pull-up threes off the screen. And, I like the move for them. I'm excited to see how it shapes them on a night-to-night basis. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. The last thing I'll bring up here is that Mike Conley is signed for next year. He has a partial guarantee for about $14 million. If Minnesota had decided that D'Angelo Russell was not the guy for them, right, next to Anthony Edwards, this was the safest way for them to continue to keep that cap spot basically on their roster. Get a guy like Mike Conley, who is going to be able to help you now, likely going to be able to help you next year. You maintain that cap spot. You maintain the flexibility for a team that likely they could have opened 20 million in cap space if they really wanted to this summer, but the starting point guard market is probably going to be higher than that. Like, Fred VanVleet's going to get more than 20. I would venture D'Angelo is probably going to get more than 20. I don't know how much I would pay him necessarily. If you guys can tell, like, I'm probably not a D'Angelo Russell guy compared to what the consensus is necessarily. I really like Mike Conley. I think he's just a better player than D'Angelo Russell. I think this is a fit that makes a lot of sense across the board. And I would bet you, going back to the Lakers, that the reason they went Russell over Conley is the expirings, because Mike Conley has that partial guarantee. It would make it a little bit more complicated for them. Okay. Now the Jazz side. Weird deal for Utah. I understand why they did it. I think that Danny Ainge just prioritized this 2027 Lakers pick more than anything else, is what it seems like, right?
Yeah, I would have thought they would have gotten more than that, just based on all the rumors that have been kind of circulating and what they were asking for certain guys. They wanted, like, they valued Conley, Vando, Olynyk, Beasley, like they valued all of them as a first round pick in return. So to send, I guess, what is it, two of them, Vando, no, three of them, and get back
And three of them.
one pick seems a little bit underwhelming. But I think I saw a tweet. They have 15 picks between now and like 2028 or 2029. So like maybe it doesn't matter all that much at the end of the day. And they wanted to do right by Mike Conley and get him into a situation where he can compete and contend while freeing up more time and stuff from development for the other guys on their team that are a little bit younger.
I think that's probably had something to do with it. I think that, like you said, it could be a situation where they feel like they have a quantity of picks right now, and they feel like this Lakers pick is a quality option in terms of a pick, right? Like they have all these Minnesota picks. They have a bunch of picks from Cleveland. We don't know what they're going to look like. But this pick here, this could be really good if the Lakers fall off by the time LeBron retires. I would assume he'll be done by 2027. I don't know if we can guarantee that given the way he's playing right now. If LeBron leaves, I would assume Anthony Davis could go out the door after him. I understand what the Jazz are thinking here. I wonder if they could have gotten a little bit more by particularly splitting this up. Like, do the Lakers not do this deal? Like, I really just talked about for a while, Jared Vanderbilt being a really high level player that I really love for the Lakers. Do they do this deal if he's not included? I don't know. Like that seems like you're getting Malik Beasley and you're getting D'Angelo Russell to get off of the Russell Westbrook deal. That's still probably worth a first round pick for you at the end of the day. I might have tried to fight if I was Utah to keep Vanderbilt out of the deal and then tried to move him elsewhere, basically move him. The deal that I really liked was going to get a first round pick for Phoenix for Dario Saric to take the Saric money, because the way that they can do that is they have this Joe Ingles trade exception. They also have a trade exception for the Rudy Gobert deal. So they can take on, $9 million basically in salary within that deal. And
the Jazz.
help the Jazz can, which would help the Suns basically save $13 million in luxury tax while also getting them Jared Vanderbilt. And they would get a first round pick. They could have gotten an additional first round pick is what I'm wondering, but maybe the Lakers held a hard line really wanting Jared Vanderbilt. I don't know. Like the Jazz, it feels like with this move are kind of signaling their intentions to take a step back and try to enter the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, right? You get rid of 3 rotation players. You're essentially not getting one back. Like, all due respect to Juan Toscano Anderson and Damian Jones. It's going to be
they don't get a
interesting.
point guard either.
Yeah, they don't really have like a great option at the lead guard now. What do you do if you're them? Is a real point here. And I think that what ends up happening is they take a step back. They end up in that number 5, number 6 range in terms of lottery odds. And they hope for the best on lottery night for Victor Wembanyama or Scoot Henderson, who, by the way, as you mentioned, they have a real hole now and could end up getting the point guard of the future.
Because right now it's just Colin Sexton, right? I don't know who. They got rid of Alexander Walker. I mean, not that he was really in their rotation anyways, but they don't really, like you said, they don't really have a lead guard. So, I mean, like you said, they're signaling what they're trying to do here. They're not trying to compete as much anymore. Like, it was fun. It was good for the first part of the season. And, they had some pleasant surprises. They drove probably, I would have thought some guys trade value up with how they were playing and the team success. But now it's time to refocus, getting back to probably what they originally had planned before they got off to such a good start, which is focus on the draft. And obviously the big one is Wembanyama, but I mean, like you said, they need another lead guard. So it's going to be interesting for them. I want to see how, what kind of rotations and kind of lineups they're starting to put out there now. If Markkanen has like a step back at all now that he's not playing with a point guard in Conley, or I don't know. Just I want to see what they prioritize going forward. Not the most. I mean, I'll say it's a surprising trade considering the haul that they gave up and what they got back.
Yeah, like I think it's fine. I don't have a
It's
problem
not a
with
bad
it
trade.
from Utah's perspective. And here's the deal. So just looking at the lottery odds as of right now, Utah's 27-28. Despite the fact they're almost 500, they're actually only 2 games out of like the 6th worst record in the league. Like they can actually really do some damage here in terms of moving up or down, depending on how you want to look at it, the lottery odds. So I wonder if that has a factor here. They might have wanted to give Colin a real run, Colin Sexton, to try and run the team a little bit, see what they have in him, given that they have him on a bigger contract. Sexton has not had a bad year. He has been, a guy that consistently scores buckets efficiently. He is at shooting 50% from the field, 42% from 3, 84% from the line, averaging 14 points. He is what he is, mostly off the bench, right? But we'll see if he can maybe take a leap into something more over the course of the next couple of months. We shall see.
Do you think they're done?
Do I think they're done? That's a good question.
You got Clarkson and guys like that. Olynyk, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like the team I've been calling out for Olynyk is Miami. Like I think Miami would really, really benefit from having another really smart floor spacer who passes well and makes good decisions in their front court. Obviously has experience within that scheme as well, Kelly. Clarkson could really help some teams. He's been awesome this year, but maybe they want to try and re-sign him. I don't know. It's hard because Clarkson's deal particularly is one where it's probably too low for him to agree to any sort of extension right now, given the way he has played this season. I mean, Jordan Clarkson is averaging 21 points per game, 45% from the field, 35% from 3, 4 assists per game versus only 2.5 turnovers per game. So he has been in the midst of a career year. If I was him, I would probably want to test the free agency market. He could help a lot of teams. He could certainly help a lot of teams if they decide to make this move a full-scale teardown. In terms of ripple effects of this deal, I don't really know. I mean, I feel like we've all been waiting for the Lakers to do something. I think maybe one is that the Lakers could go out and try and get someone else now with the 2029 first-round pick and Patrick Beverley's contract if they really wanted to. Like, that's $13 million. They could certainly try and do some damage with that. I would venture they probably keep this pick, but it's not impossible they could go out and make a move over the next 24 hours.
I think, it depends on who they're talking to. Obviously, I don't know how much value Patrick Beverley would have. I mean, it's an expiring, so maybe some team would just be willing to eat that in order to get the first round pick. But whatever that would bring back, I don't know if that's good enough for the Lakers to part with with their last first round pick. So, but that's certainly a possibility when you consider, their guard rotation now with being a little bit crowded with Schroeder, D'Lo, Malik Beasley, Pat Bev. I don't know if you want to consider Reeves a guard or not, but there's certainly a lot of capable guys that are capable of playing big minutes at the guard position. So I don't know, maybe they do explore that route. But I think we're kind of all waiting on that. There's obviously other teams that we're waiting on now, like the Raptors and obviously the whole Kevin Durant situation. But for now, the Lakers have made their move. We'll see if they make another one. And less than 48 hours until we have some clarity on what the heck is going to go on the rest of the season.
Well, and CeeLo in the YouTube comments here asks, why didn't Utah or why didn't the Lakers want Mike Conley? Is the question in the comments here. And I think it's just that they're small already. Like I think it's the partial guarantee on Conley's deal for next season, which gives them a little bit less flexibility, and the fact that they're small already. And I personally would have rather had Conley and moved a couple of the other small guards that are already on the roster for maybe someone like an Eric Gordon if I could have. But end of the day, I would venture that it was that desire for flexibility moving forward that probably tilted them more toward D'Angelo Russell in this deal than Mike Conley. In terms of Minnesota, this seems like a big move for them. This seems like the kind of move that, makes a lot of sense for them. And I don't know if they'll really go out of their way to get a lot of other things done. And then Utah, like you said, they very well could continue moving forward here in terms of like other teams around the league. Law Murray, our colleague over at The Athletic, reported that the Clippers would have interest in Russell Westbrook if he gets a buyout. Maybe that's where we finish this conversation. I mean, what in the world happens with Russell Westbrook now? Because I can't imagine the Jazz are going to keep him.
And I can imagine him wanting to play at that arena in front of those fans with how much history he's had with them. So I think it would be best for both parties to get that buyout going. That's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the market was for Westbrook, obviously, on his big contract as a trade piece was nothing. But as a buyout candidate, I don't know. Are people willing to take a shot on him for the lower price? It'll be interesting. Like if the Clippers are actually rumored to want him, like it just be weird to me to go from John Wall to Russell Westbrook. Like they kind of tried this already. They offer a little bit of different things, but pretty much the same player in terms of defense, not really being there, not really being able to shoot, no floor spacing, not great finishing at the rim. Like it just seems like I'm not really too sure about that one, but you never know. You always take a swing on the upside of Westbrook, I guess, if it's that cheap.
Well, and like with the Clippers, I mean, God, you watch the Clippers more than I do. Like the Clippers, that team has more stagnant offense, I feel like, than any team in the NBA outside of the Raptors right now, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, their offense is just like isolation. Okay, dribble, we'll get the ball to PG. Dribble, we'll get the ball to Kawhi. Or maybe Reggie Jackson's going to try and isolate on a possession. John Wall's going to try and get to his elbow jumper. Like it's really frustrating to watch. Or like it's one single driving kick out to a sprayed, kick out to Marcus Morris or Luke Kennard or someone like that, right? Mm-hmm. I think they need more guys like Terrence Mann, not more guys like Russell Westbrook, with all due respect to Russ, who I think everyone on this show knows I have a lot of affection for. I really enjoy watching him play. I don't know where he goes from here. If you told me that like he ends up sitting out the rest of this year, that wouldn't blow my mind. And by the way, like, Thad Fouché, his ex-agent, he basically predicted all of this essentially.
I remember having that conversation with you earlier when I hopped on the pod. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I completely disagree with the fact that, Fouché completely aired out his client like that, but this was all foreseeable. And it sounds like even Russell Westbrook had people advising him at the time that this was foreseeable, and we'll see where it goes now.